Elias Hargrove blinked slowly through blurred vision, his head aching sharply from whatever they'd struck him with. The cold metal beneath him vibrated subtly, humming like an impatient predator as it glided silently through space. He tasted copper on his cracked lips, blood and defeat mingling bitterly. Age-creased hands, wrists raw from metal restraints, trembled as they brushed against the alien floor plating. They'd caught him unaware, deep in neutral space, far from the comfort of home. Eli's humble agricultural vessel had never stood a chance against Sarcadian interceptors. For decades he'd peacefully cultivated Earth on distant moons, believing humanity's violent chapters buried forever in dusty history books. But history had a nasty habit of resurrecting itself. Two tall, armored guards approached silently, their reflective visors masking any expression. They hauled him upright without ceremony, forcing a grunt from his lips as old bones protested the abrupt movement. "Move, human!" one barked sharply, pushing Eli toward an imposing, open doorway. He stumbled forward, steadying himself as dignity demanded, breathing deep against pain, rising fear, and smoldering anger. Within moments, Eli found himself standing on a raised platform inside an enormous command chamber. Alien eyes, dozens, cold and assessing, fixed upon him as the guards released him roughly. A hush settled, tense anticipation mingling oddly with disdain. A broad figure, dressed in dark ceremonial armor that glittered under harsh lights, stepped confidently from the gathered ranks. Admiral Zorvax Ilshan towered over Eli, reptilian scales shimmering in a deep indigo hue, eyes sharp with calculated arrogance. The admiral tilted his head slightly, a faint sneer twitching at the corner of his thin mouth. "So, this is humanity's legacy?" Zorvax's voice resonated deep and mocking, amusement lacing every syllable. "An elderly specimen? Is this truly what remains of your proud species spirit?" Soft chuckles rippled through the alien officers, mocking and disdainful. Eli held his gaze steady, refusing to break contact despite the icy disdain radiating from the admiral. "Legacy's a tricky thing, Admiral," Eli replied calmly, voice rough yet steady, untouched by fear. "You might find it's less about age and more about memory. And memory is dangerous when forgotten." A ripple of confused amusement washed through Zorvax's expression before settling into mild annoyance. "Bold talk for a species so long reduced to gardeners and merchants. Your wars are ancient history, human, your past glories merely children's tales now." Eli straightened, feeling his pride flare, warming blood chilled by capture and humiliation. He tasted defiance and drew strength from memories tucked deep within the heart he'd buried decades ago. "That's exactly your mistake," Eli said quietly, clearly enough to silence the amused murmurs. His words carried a sharper edge, echoing gently through the enormous hall. "We humans carry history in our bones, Admiral. Push us far enough, and you awaken something you'll dearly regret." For a long moment, silence hung thick in the chamber. The Admiral studied Eli carefully, as if attempting to discern if this feeble-seeming human could pose any credible threat. Then he threw back his head, a mocking laughter roaring through the vast hall, ringing off walls and echoing into distant corridors. The crew joined hesitantly, dutiful laughter swelling around Eli, who stood unmoving, expression granite-hard. His defiance was a thin line of steel running invisibly through the laughter, anchoring him in quiet resolve. Finally, Admiral Zorvax raised a clawed hand, signaling the laughter to cease. His tone dropped sharply, mockery fading into a menacing threat. "Brave words from a captive. But bravado is meaningless, human. Your species forgot warfare long ago. Peace has made you weak, lazy." Eli's eyes narrowed slightly, piercing deep into the Admiral's arrogance. His words dropped softer, carefully measured, deliberate. "You don't understand us, Admiral. Humans never truly forget war. We set it aside, hoping never to use it again." He paused, voice steady, intense. "But it's always there, waiting. You've stirred it now." The Admiral's amusement vanished, replaced by irritation. "Enough of your vague threats. Humans are obsolete, mere farmers scratching dirt on abandoned worlds. If war is your hidden talent, why haven't your people risen against us before now?" "Because we chose peace," Eli stated plainly. But peace, Admiral, is a choice we can revoke. A few alien officers shifted uneasily, unsettled by Eli's quiet confidence. Admiral Zorvax visibly bristled, pride wounded, yet too proud to openly show it. He gestured sharply toward the guards. Return this feeble creature to containment. Perhaps solitude will remind him of his place. The guards grasped Eli roughly, dragging him back toward the corridor. As he moved away, Eli locked eyes once more with the Admiral, calm defiance burning steadily. You'll learn, Admiral, Eli said, his tone utterly steady. Mockery is easy. But humility, that lesson comes hard. Zorvax watched silently, brow knitted in frustration, as Eli disappeared from sight. The human's words lingered, infecting the chamber with unsettling doubt. Murmurs rippled softly among the gathered officers, an undertone of uncertain questioning eroding their confidence. Eli, dragged through the stark corridors toward confinement, felt no despair. Beneath his quiet farmer's facade, the brilliant tactician of humanity's past had already begun calculating strategy. His old, scarred hands clenched subtly, fists of resolve hidden from his captor's indifferent gaze. They'd brought war upon themselves. They just didn't realize it yet. Eli sat quietly in the dimness of his cell, a sparse room bathed in faint amber light. The air smelled stale, metallic, a harsh reminder of captivity. Yet even here, his mind turned rapidly, piecing together possibilities from memory and instinct. The ship hummed around him, its steady rhythm whispering vulnerabilities Eli was trained to sense, habits ingrained from a lifetime spent navigating warfare. He rubbed swollen wrists gently, coaxing the blood back into stiff fingers. The bruises faded quickly from his thoughts, replaced by plans forming quietly beneath an impassive exterior. If the Zarkadians thought humanity weak, Eli would exploit their blindness. He'd seen their confidence firsthand, and in it lay cracks he could use, egos fragile as glass. A soft hiss interrupted his calculations as the cell door slid open, revealing a solitary Zarkadian guard named Grivix. Younger, smaller than most, he radiated insecurity despite the imposing armor covering his slim form. He stepped inside slowly, the cell door closing behind him. Meal, Grivix said curtly, setting down a tray without looking at Eli, clearly uncomfortable. Eli studied the guard quietly, noting subtle hesitations in his movements, a vulnerability he'd seen before in frightened young recruits thrust into roles they hadn't earned. Eli's voice emerged soft, non-threatening, a grandfatherly tone perfected through years spent mentoring soldiers in quiet camps. Thank you, Eli murmured, his gaze steady yet gentle. Grivix, isn't it? Grivix startled visibly, backing slightly toward the door. You remember my name? Of course, Eli replied simply. Remembering details kept me alive in tougher situations. The guard paused, considering, before shaking his head sharply. Don't try manipulation, human. Admiral warned us. Manipulation? Eli chuckled softly, sincere amusement threading his voice. That takes effort I'm far too old to spare. I prefer conversation. You seem troubled. Anything bothering you? Grivix's expression faltered, but only briefly. Still, Eli noticed. Nothing bothers me, the guard insisted, voice too quick. Zarkadians fear nothing. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Eli murmured softly, as though recalling distant wisdom. Real bravery faces fears head-on. Admirals forget sometimes. I've seen your type before, young, sharp, overlooked. Grivix blinked uncertainly, the armor seeming to shrink slightly around him. Eli leaned back, easing pressure deliberately, allowing silence to linger. Eventually, the young guard shifted nervously, breaking tension he barely understood. Why fight for Admiral Zorvax? Eli asked mildly. You're smarter than most here, probably notice things they don't. Grivix hesitated, his fingers tightening anxiously. What things? Like how easily Zorvax dismisses loyalty. Eli answered quietly, his tone casually reflective. Good leaders inspire trust. Poor ones demand blind obedience. Which is he? Grivix stiffened. He's our admiral. Eli merely nodded, non-argumentative. Yes, he is. But I sense you're smarter than blind loyalty. That troubles you, doesn't it? The guard hesitated, voice softer. Doubt is weakness. No, Eli corrected gently. Doubt keeps you alive. Confidence makes mistakes. Mistakes get soldiers killed. For several heartbeats, silence held its breath. Grivix shifted uneasily, turning toward the door. But Eli spoke quietly once more, halting him. You're cautious, thoughtful. That's why you haven't risen further yet. Leaders like Zorvax promote those who don't question. Grivix turned abruptly, curiosity overcoming caution. Why tell me this? Eli smiled faintly. Because someone should. The guard stared, bewildered. Eli saw confusion but also intrigue, the first small spark of questioning authority. The young soldier departed hurriedly, leaving Eli alone again. But the seeds had taken root, spreading quietly beneath the surface. As the door hissed shut, Eli settled back against cold metal walls, allowing his memories to surface clearly. A lifetime of battles shaped his thoughts, bringing clarity despite captivity. Vividly, old battles returned, guerrilla warfare, tactical feints, and hidden movements beneath enemy noses. Eli recalled how he once turned powerful empires against themselves without firing a single shot directly. Flashbacks danced like ghosts across the dim chamber, memories of distant worlds bathed in fiery skies. Eli saw again ragged human resistance fighters crouching silently, their eyes wide but trusting. They'd faced impossible odds then, too, aliens believing humanity defeated, only to discover how resilient humans truly were. Do you think we'll survive? Young soldiers once asked him, eyes fearful yet hopeful beneath battle grime. Eli had smiled back, steady. Survival isn't luck, it's strategy. Remember, the enemy's strength is their arrogance. Use it against them. Now, alone again, Eli felt the weight of those lessons sharpen his resolve, focusing thoughts into actionable steps. The Zarkadians were strong but brittle. Beneath their armor of arrogance lay fractures waiting for the right pressure. Eli had found his lever in Grivix. Hours passed, his senses alert, absorbing subtle vibrations through walls, footsteps passing outside, movements of guards and patrols. Each detail he mapped mentally, understanding the ship's pulse. He began constructing plans silently, analyzing every possibility, assessing each weakness. Even from confinement, he saw clearly how to exploit their confidence. Cracks easily widened with careful pressure. A faint tapping sounded at the door, gentle and hesitant. Eli raised his head as Grivix returned, nervous yet compelled by something deeper than mere duty. The guard stepped inside carefully, cautious eyes meeting Eli's steady gaze. What did you mean earlier? Grivix whispered quietly, troubled. About Admiral Zorvax, about mistakes? Eli leaned forward gently, expression open yet firm. Zorvax underestimates others. His weakness blinds him. It endangers everyone, including you. Grivix swallowed slowly, voice trembling slightly. But he's Admiral. And you're disposable, Eli said quietly, voice steady yet compassionate. He'll sacrifice pawns first. The guard stared silently, absorbing reality. Eli offered truth gently, planting questions deeper within Grivix's troubled mind. Finally, quietly, Grivix spoke again, fear edged with dawning realization. What happens now? Eli smiled gently, eyes determined, steady. Now you choose, Grivix. Blind loyalty, or survival. The guard hesitated, uncertainty warring visibly with newfound clarity. Eli waited patiently, understanding how battles, true victories, often began quietly, in moments just like this. The flagship trembled subtly beneath Admiral Zorvax's polished boots, a gentle vibration that had grown increasingly troublesome over the last hours. Standing rigidly at the heart of the command deck, the Admiral studied streams of data scrolling rapidly across glowing screens. His clawed fingers flexed slowly, irritation tightening his jaw as reports of minor system failures steadily trickled in, disturbing the vessel's harmony. What in the stars is happening on my ship? Zorvax growled, his voice low yet forceful, slicing through the quiet tension surrounding his officers. Chief Engineer Zarlek, normally confident, hesitated before responding. Admiral, Initial diagnostics show no external damage. The disruptions appear internal, possible sabotage. Sabotage. Zorvax hissed slowly, tasting the word bitterly. Impossible. Security is airtight. Yet the evidence suggests otherwise. Zarlek murmured cautiously, eyes lowered respectfully. Zorvax's glare narrowed sharply. Search every corner. I want answers, not excuses. Meanwhile, deep within the ship's labyrinthine corridors, Eli Hargrove moved calmly, footsteps quiet and assured. Beside him walked Grivix, visibly tense but now committed, eyes darting nervously through shadowed passageways. You sure about this? Grivix whispered anxiously, armor rustling faintly with each hesitant step. If we're caught, we won't be. Eli reassured gently, calm determination radiating in his quiet confidence. The Admiral expects brute force, not subtlety. They halted near an auxiliary control panel concealed behind maintenance hatches. Eli expertly pried it open, hands moving swiftly, drawing upon instincts ingrained from distant campaigns. A cluster of brightly colored wires and intricate circuitry appeared before them. How can you know their tech so well? Grivix asked softly, curiosity briefly overcoming his nervousness. War taught me adaptability, Eli murmured, fingers deftly rerouting wires. Differences in technology matter little, everything shares common weaknesses. Lights flickered briefly throughout adjacent corridors, drawing muffled shouts and hurried footsteps. Grivix tensed, breath shallow, but Eli calmly continued his task. They'll detect this, Grivix whispered urgently. We must hurry. No, Eli said firmly, eyes focused but unhurried. We want them to notice, just enough. Grivix stared, puzzled, but trusted Eli's quiet assurance. They quickly sealed the panel, leaving no obvious trace, retreating silently through less traveled pathways. Each shadow sheltered them, echoes masking footsteps. Gradually, Grivix's anxiety faded, replaced by growing wonder at Eli's patient courage. Elsewhere, confusion spread swiftly through Zorvax's command ranks. Minor malfunctions multiplied, infuriatingly unpredictable, unsettling soldiers accustomed to flawless precision. Tensions frayed nerves, officers snapping irritably at each other, their usual discipline splintering subtly beneath persistent uncertainties. Sir? Zarlek reported hesitantly, voice strained. We isolated certain systems, yet disruptions remain unexplained. Then explain them. Zorvax snapped angrily. Or find someone who can. Doubt rippled quietly among officers, furtive glances questioning silently beneath stoic masks. Loyalty, once absolute, faltered slightly under growing frustration. Zorvax felt it keenly, his temper fraying, composure slipping further from grasp. Back in his cell, Eli sat calmly, face relaxed yet attentive. Grivix lingered briefly near the doorway, worry etched clearly across his youthful features. They'll trace this to us eventually, Grivix murmured, shifting nervously. Admiral Zorvax won't show mercy. Eli's expression softened gently. Fear blinds him. He'll never suspect such a subtle threat from within. He believes his own superiority too strongly. Grivix hesitated, eyes searching Eli's steady gaze for reassurance. Yet if we're discovered, then we use their arrogance again. Eli answered firmly, no fear evident in his calm voice. Pride is brittle, Grivix. Push it, and it breaks. Grivix paused, absorbing the quiet wisdom, nodding finally before slipping back into shadows beyond the cell. Eli remained seated, patiently planning next moves, thoughts sharp and precise as tactical diagrams once etched into battlefields long forgotten. Hours passed quietly, ship-wide disruptions ebbing briefly, replaced by eerie silence. Tension lingered thickly, awaiting the next inevitable incident. When it finally arrived, it struck swiftly and unmistakably, deep within central communications. Screens flickered erratically, messages scrambled, rendering critical instructions useless. Admiral Zorvax roared furiously, fists slamming against polished consoles. Enough! Bring me the human prisoner, now! Moments later, guards roughly seized Eli, escorting him quickly to the command deck, where Zorvax paced angrily beneath pulsing alert lights. Eli stood composed, meeting the Admiral's furious glare unflinchingly. Your sabotage ends now, human, Zorvax growled dangerously, eyes blazing. Confess, your punishment might lessen. Eli regarded him quietly, a hint of thoughtful amusement in his calm expression. Punish me if you must, Admiral, but sabotaging your own ship to cover incompetence is hardly my doing. Shock rippled visibly across nearby officers, whispers exchanging doubts openly now. Zorvax bristled sharply, scales gleaming beneath angry flush. Incompetence? Sabotage requires resources, Eli explained mildly, voice gentle yet penetrating clearly. Look around, Admiral. What could I possibly use from within your highest security? Uncertainty bloomed openly among officers. Eli saw clearly their fragile trust wavering. Zorvax's expression twisted, fury barely contained, sensing loyalty weakening before him. You deceive! Zorvax roared, desperately reclaiming control. You humans excel at lies! Eli met the Admiral's accusing gaze calmly, quietly unwavering. If lying were my goal, Admiral, I wouldn't need words. Your leadership provides evidence enough. Zorvax lunged forward furiously, halted sharply by his own officer's hesitant hands restraining him subtly. Eli remained motionless, face compassionate yet unyielding. The Admiral froze, breath heavy, realizing suddenly how precariously thin his authority balanced. Eli spoke gently, addressing officers directly, words clear yet soft. I understand loyalty. But blind loyalty destroys everything, including yourselves. Silence lingered thickly across the deck, Zorvax glaring helplessly at his crew. Eli's quiet truth echoed powerfully within each officer's troubled conscience, fracturing certainty. Uncertainty filled empty spaces between breaths, reshaping allegiances silently beneath harsh, flickering lights. Chaos rippled visibly through the flagship's corridors as Eli moved swiftly, guided quietly by Grivix toward the detention block. Around them, alarms pulse red, officers hurrying past with anxious confusion etched into tense faces. Authority unraveled subtly beneath their notice, loyalty fading alongside fractured discipline. Eli recognized signs of silent rebellion, careful hesitation lingering in every uncertain glance exchanged. At a secure doorway, Grivix hesitated briefly, fingers trembling slightly while punching in stolen access codes. The panel blinked softly, green lights confirming acceptance. The door hissed gently, opening to reveal startled prisoners, humans and various alien captives alike, eyes wide with cautious hope. Follow quickly, Eli urged calmly, voice firm but reassuring. We have limited time. One prisoner stepped forward hesitantly, a human woman with sharp eyes named Kara. Her gaze narrowed slightly, skepticism mingling openly with weary hope. You're Hargrove? The strategist? Eli nodded simply, calm resolve radiating assurance. We fight differently this time, but fight we must. Do you trust me? She hesitated only briefly, exhaustion fading gently beneath his quiet certainty. Lead the way. The prisoners quietly joined Eli and Grivix, swiftly moving down passageways emptied by growing disorder. Eli's instincts guided them carefully, his pace steady yet urgent. Behind, Kara matched his steps, quiet admiration building silently as she watched Eli's thoughtful decisiveness shape each choice he made. Ahead lay the communications relay, a vulnerable nerve center Eli had carefully identified earlier. As they approached, he raised a hand, signaling the group silently into shadows. Grivix stood alert, fear tinged slightly with brave resolve, fingers gripping a small weapon closely, armor glinting softly beneath dim corridor lighting. Here, Eli whispered softly, nodding toward the secured entrance. Grivix, override the locks quietly. The young guard moved quickly, tension visible but determination now firmly settled within him. He deftly accessed control panels, fingers steady despite lingering nervousness. Moments later, the doorway unlocked silently, opening a pathway straight into the heart of Zarkadian communications. Inside, a trio of officers turned sharply, confusion bright in startled eyes. Eli stepped forward calmly, expression gentle yet commanding, Step away. We aren't here for violence. One officer reached instinctively toward his weapon, uncertainty etched deeply in his hesitant movements. Eli's voice halted him softly, reassurance quietly filling each carefully chosen word. Think first, Eli advised gently. Is the Admiral's pride worth your lives? The officers hesitated, exchanging quiet, troubled glances. Slowly, hands drifted cautiously from weapons, surrendering silently beneath Eli's quiet truth. Kara quickly secured the room, her movements swift and confident, reflecting trust Eli had quietly fostered within mere minutes. Eli swiftly approached the central console, fingers expertly manipulating complex controls. Grivix watched, awe mingling openly with respect at Eli's precise confidence. Communications channels flickered alive around them, waiting silently for his message. Ready, Kara murmured softly, gaze attentive, understanding clearly what would follow. Eli inhaled deeply, activating transmission across the vast galactic broadcast network. Calm yet compelling, he spoke clearly, reaching out carefully to scattered humans and oppressed alien worlds, understanding vividly that his next words shaped countless futures. This is Captain Elias Hargrove. Eli began quietly yet powerfully. I speak from aboard the Zarkadian flagship Astral Supremacy. Humanity remains unconquered, not by brute force, but because freedom persists in our hearts. His voice grew stronger, resonance carrying quiet determination outward. The Zarkadians misunderstand strength. They believe intimidation equals power. Yet real strength lies within unity, within refusing surrender. On the flagship's command deck, Admiral Zorvax stood frozen, watching helplessly as Eli's image broadcast galaxy-wide. Rage trembled violently beneath clenched fists, officers around him visibly shaken, loyalty fraying rapidly with every word Eli calmly delivered. Eli continued gently yet unwaveringly, sincerity clear within careful pauses. Admiral Zorvax built his empire upon arrogance, exploiting fear and division. But arrogance breeds blindness, and blind leaders fall swiftly once exposed. Kara, beside him, silently admired the quiet depth within Eli's words, watching their effect ripple gently outward, igniting hope among unseen audiences. Prisoners behind him stood straighter, faces uplifted by growing courage Eli gently offered them, dignity visibly restored through quiet determination. Your lives belong to you, Eli concluded powerfully, emotion subtly threading his steady voice. Do not surrender freedom easily. Resist. Unite. Show the Zarkadians strength they cannot comprehend, the strength of spirit unbroken. As Eli ended transmission quietly, an overwhelming silence filled the relay room, heavy yet hopeful. Grivix stared softly, pride gently evident within young, bright eyes. That was powerful. Words change worlds, Eli murmured thoughtfully, eyes briefly distant. Now we act? Across the vessel, dissent bloomed openly, soldiers hesitating deliberately beneath confused orders shouted desperately by Zorvax's command. Discipline shattered steadily, loyalty replaced subtly with questioning hesitation born directly from Eli's powerful truth. Zorvax spun angrily toward his officers, voice hoarse with barely contained fury. Stop him, immediately! Restore order! Yet silence answered softly, officers exchanging quietly uncertain glances. Courage, carefully nurtured, refused obedience to prideful rage. Zorvax, suddenly alone amidst crumbling authority, felt bitter panic rising sharply, eyes wide with disbelief. Returning swiftly toward hidden escape routes, Eli paused briefly, turning thoughtfully toward Grivix, gently acknowledging bravery the young alien now clearly possessed. You chose courage over fear. Remember always that choice defines character. Grivix met Eli's quiet gaze earnestly, gratitude evident alongside renewed dignity. Thank you for showing me truth. Eli nodded gently, respect exchanged silently, understanding bridging divides created by fear and misunderstanding. They moved onward quickly, comrades bonded quietly through shared courage and resolve. Behind them, authority collapsed visibly, Zarkadian control dissolving swiftly beneath quiet rebellion spreading steadily outward from the flagship. Eli knew clearly what he'd begun, hope quietly seated, now blossoming powerfully through galaxies long oppressed. Freedom was awakening gently, unstoppable, quietly powerful within hearts reclaiming dignity. Eli moved swiftly onward, prepared calmly to face whatever came next, knowing with absolute clarity that the battle he'd begun reached far beyond simple warfare. It was a struggle quietly fought, victory measured not through conquest, but within countless quiet moments choosing dignity and courage over fear. Eli stood silently at the edge of the command bridge, watching quietly as Admiral Zorvax paced furiously beneath flickering lights. The Admiral's composure, once carefully sculpted from arrogance, lay fractured visibly, his eyes wild with disbelief, scales pale beneath strained rage. Officers watched quietly from distant shadows, uncertainty shaping their hesitant stances, loyalty now fragile. "You!" Zorvax growled, pointing sharply toward Eli, his voice thick with bitter accusation. "You caused this, poisoned my crew against me." Eli met his glare calmly, voice gentle yet resolute. "Your arrogance accomplished that alone, Admiral. I merely exposed it." "Arrogance!" Zorvax hissed venomously. "I conquered worlds, built empires. Yet you never understood leadership." Eli replied softly, stepping forward slowly. "Conquest built upon fear always collapses eventually." The Admiral's clawed fingers trembled slightly, frustration battling wounded pride openly across his face. "Humans speak endlessly of peace yet unleash chaos. Hypocrites!" Eli's voice remained steady, compassion threading carefully through quiet words. "We value peace deeply, but will fight fiercely when freedom demands it." "Enough!" Zorvax roared desperately, eyes pleading toward officers standing silently around him. "Detain this human traitor immediately!" Yet no one moved. Eli noticed quiet glances exchanged carefully among officers, hesitant yet clearly unwilling to support Zorvax's reckless fury. Authority no longer commanded respect, replaced gently with doubt and quiet rebellion. Admiral Zorvax's eyes widened slowly, realization spreading bitterly across features shadowed with quiet desperation. "You dare betray me, your admiral?" A senior officer stepped forward gently, voice firm yet respectful. "You betrayed yourself, Admiral. Your pride blinded us all." Zorvax recoiled visibly, disbelief radiating from every trembling muscle. Eli watched silently, compassion mingling openly with quiet triumph. The Admiral had finally seen clearly, his power broken by truths he'd long ignored. Zorvax's breathing quickened sharply, desperation now shaping reckless decisions visibly. He lunged suddenly toward the console, claws stabbing furiously at controls, eyes glittering fiercely with vindictive intent. "Admiral!" the officer shouted urgently, alarm threading his voice. "Stop! You'll destroy the entire ship! Better destruction than humiliation!" Zorvax snarled viciously, gaze fevered. Alarms screamed sharply, red warnings pulsing harshly through flickering screens. Panic erupted visibly across the bridge as critical systems destabilized rapidly, the vessel trembling violently beneath desperate sabotage. Officers scrambled frantically, attempting uselessly to regain failing control. Eli quickly stepped forward, urgency threading carefully within calm commands. "Evacuate, quickly! This ship is beyond saving now." Crew members paused briefly, uncertainty etched deeply across fearful faces. Eli addressed them directly, voice clear yet gentle. "Survival matters more than pride. Go now!" Understanding replaced hesitation swiftly, soldiers moving urgently toward escape pods. Eli turned sharply toward Admiral Zorvax, who stood frozen near sparking controls, rage and fear battling visibly across features trapped within pride's stubborn grasp. "Come!" Eli urged softly yet firmly. "Don't let your pride be your end, Admiral." Zorvax's eyes narrowed bitterly, hatred shining brightly through fierce defiance. "Spare me false compassion, human!" Eli studied him quietly, sadness threading softly through his steady gaze. "Compassion isn't weakness, Admiral. It's strength." Yet Zorvax shook his head violently, determination fixed stubbornly in blind refusal. Eli understood clearly that pride had claimed Zorvax permanently, no rescue possible. He turned quickly, joining surviving crews swiftly evacuating the collapsing flagship. Through narrow corridors trembling violently beneath imminent destruction, Eli moved swiftly, guided by instincts sharpened across decades, quietly navigating battlefields long forgotten. Grivix appeared beside him urgently, relief evident within eyes bright with gratitude. "Escape pod secured," Grivix reported breathlessly, guiding Eli hurriedly forward. Around them, explosions thundered sharply, lights failing dramatically beneath emergency conditions worsening rapidly. Eli paused briefly, gently urging Kara and surviving prisoners into waiting pods, calm reassurance steadying their anxious movements. "Quickly," Eli encouraged gently yet firmly. "Freedom awaits beyond fear." They boarded swiftly, the pods sealing sharply behind them. Moments later, a powerful surge launched them violently outward, stars spinning briefly beyond viewports before stabilizing gently, revealing scattered pods drifting softly against the vast backdrop of space. From safety, Eli watched quietly as the flagship shuddered visibly, internal explosions multiplying fiercely until, finally, a silent burst of brilliant light consumed the vessel utterly. Zorvax's prideful empire vanished quietly into dust, fragments drifting silently through endless darkness. Within the pod, silence lingered thickly, gratitude mingling gently with quiet awe. Grivix shifted slightly, finally breaking careful quietness. "You saved us, Captain Hargrove." Eli smiled gently, humility evident within calm eyes. "We saved each other, Grivix. Strength isn't solitary, it's shared." Quiet murmurs of agreement drifted gently among survivors, understanding weaving softly through newfound bonds forged deeply amidst struggle. Kara leaned forward slightly, voice thoughtful yet firm. "What happens next, Captain?" Eli met her gaze steadily, hope threading clearly through quiet certainty. "We rebuild Kara, not with conquest but unity. We remind world's freedom thrives strongest within courage." Grivix nodded earnestly, determination shaping youthful features brightly beneath hope's gentle promise. "Your message changed everything, Captain." Eli's eyes softened thoughtfully, memories gently filling quiet moments spent carefully shaping destinies through words rather than weapons. "No, our choices changed everything. Words only awakened courage." Silence settled warmly among survivors, quiet gratitude threading deeply through hearts now bonded irrevocably by shared hope. Eli watched silently as distant rescue ships approached steadily, drawn swiftly towards signals broadcast quietly from scattered pods drifting gently through starry darkness. Freedom, he understood deeply, required constant vigilance and quiet bravery, the willingness continually to choose dignity over surrender. Battles changed shape endlessly, yet courage remained quietly constant, guiding gently forward beneath endless uncertainties. As Eli studied stars drifting silently beyond transparent viewports, calm resolve filled him clearly. Humanity, scattered yet undefeated, now understood strength differently, defined gently by compassion, unity, an unyielding spirit shaped quietly through struggle. Peace, he hoped sincerely, awaited quietly beyond warfare's fading echoes, built gently yet powerfully upon quiet courage forever refusing surrender. Quietly, Eli smiled, heart finally peaceful, knowing clearly that humanity's true victory had already quietly begun.